I'm sure somebody must have written a fairy story, or somebody. This would be a good subject for a fairy story, where a child is just leading a regular life in their home, and he comes from a very poor family, so everything is made out of cheap materials, and one day he discovers that everything is actually made out of gold. Everything that was in his house and his school and in his neighborhood and his street, it was actually made out of gold, but it had a thin veneer of wood and iron and fabric over it. It was really all made out of gold and silk. And he discovers that one day because he scratches the cheap fabric, the threadbare fabric that his sofa is made out of, and he feels that it's soft underneath, and he finds that it's made of silk. And then he goes up into his bedroom and he scratches the paint off his bed, and he sees that it's not cheap glossy paint, there's gold underneath it. And so he goes around scratching, and the scratching is the exploring that we're doing, scratching the surface of everything, seeing what's underneath it. And he discovers that everything is made out of gold. And then so he starts leading a life that is consistent with his understanding. He takes appropriate care over all the different objects because they're now made out of this precious stuff. Well, we've discovered that the stuff that the world is made out of is infinitely more precious than gold. Yeah. It's made out of our self, the most precious thing.
It's really good because going back to the leaves, I mean that preciousness is what.
Yes.
In fact, that I would describe it as the pearl that is beyond price. Actually.
Yes, exactly. So having discovered what is the pearl beyond price, it's the intimacy of our own being.
Yeah.
And having discovered that is the fabric of the world, that is the substance of the world, what we once considered to be dead, inert stuff, when we scratch the shiny paint off it, we find this pearl underneath. Now, the way to make that real, actual in our lives is to really live it, to treat objects and animals and people like that, to relate to them in that way. And you can go on leading a very ordinary life. Nobody will know from the outside that when you pick up your knife and fork, you feel, not just think, but feel that it is made only out of touching, which means only out of yourself.
Something that, Shantananda Saraswati says about all that is necessary is to feel rich. And it's one thing to think,
yes,
rich, but it's quite
exactly. Yes, perfect. And live according. And what's magical about the world, we think that the world is this kind of inert, dead inert thing that is cast in stone, but it's not. The world is so alive and responsive. As soon as we start treating the world like that, the world says thank you. The world responds. People and animals and even so-called dead stuff, it responds, it turns around, and the first thing it says to us is, thank you for treating me as I am. And it has an infinite ways of saying thank you, and each way is uniquely tailored to each body-mind. But in one way or another, the world returns the gift. You treat me as I am, I will behave with you as I am.
Shakespeare says, for thy sweet love remembered, such wealth brings, that then I scorn to change my state of king.
Yes.
And it's that wealth, actually. Because the other, everything else about the so-called other is poverty, in fact.
Yes, because when we treat others as they truly are, again, that's an experiment that you can perform. In fact, just we may explore this more in a meditation later this week. But you can, when you're speaking with someone, you can experiment with these two possibilities. Just take two possibilities for the moment. You can speak to them as if you were a separate self, and therefore if they were a separate self, and conduct your relationship, whatever it is, an intimate relationship, an ordinary friendship, a business transaction, all kinds of relationships. Proceed as if that was the case. And then change the experiment and know that what you are is this awareness without limits, without a second. and therefore relate to the very same awareness, quote unquote, in them, that you are. And the response is the world sometimes takes some time to respond, but the response from people is usually immediate. Not always, but usually immediate. For exactly the same reason that we like to be treated as we are. When somebody treats us as we truly are, what we truly are kind of grows. We recognize it, even if it's not being overtly expressed, and in most cases it's not, but just if there is the feeling that the other truly loves and respects what you are, then somehow that magnifies what we are, and it almost commands us to behave as we truly are.
It seems to me a kind of generosity that is...
It's the ultimate generosity.
Kind of heart-melting.
Absolutely. It's the ultimate generosity. Exactly.
As you say, there's that reciprocating
yes.
move, as it were.
Yes. And it's the reciprocation that we get from people, from the world, from objects. That is the real confirmation. The real confirmation is not some very well put together Advaita treatise or theory.
Or special experience.
Or indeed a special experience. But it's because the special experiences are kind of confirmations, but they're confirmations that leave us with doubt. And the theories are no kind of confirmation. I mean, what kind of a confirmation is intellectual clarity? The confirmation really comes in our lives, in our everyday lives, in more ordinary ways.
Well, you kind of get fed up with intellectual clarity, and that's fine.
Well, no, it's not that we get fed up with it, because intellectual clarity has its place, but it only goes so far. It paves the way for the much deeper, for taking this, as you say, into the heart, into the body, and into the world. Intellectual clarity can be very helpful, but it only goes so far.
Yeah, well, I just meant in isolation.
Sure, yes. Yes, you're right. After a while, we feel, I've had this clarity for years, but there is something still missing.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.